So what I've got here is a thermostatic outlet controller. It gives you two outlets here, plugs into just a single standard receptacle. Actually had one of these in place for 4 or 5 years now, and it quit. So I had to get a new one. Anyway, what it does, it comes on at 35 degrees and shuts off at 45, as it says. Standard 120 volt. It's a 15 amp, which if we do the math on that, comes out to about 1800 watts. And I think it actually says this on the back here. You can get these at your local home store. Home Depot has them. One near me actually had them in stock. Amazon has them as well. And in fact, in multi-packs, I'm not sure what you would do with 10 unless you were running a small hardware store. Those small hardware stores probably have these too. So anybody who's ever had a, out in the country, had a well house where you had to keep it from freezing in the winter, probably knows the drill with a heat lamp. Same thing kind of for pets if you have dogs outside. Ours are actually spoiled and come in at night and sleep inside. But during the day sometimes, we had, yesterday was I think a high of about 10 degrees. And that's a little cold for them. So besides having a dog house and 3 of them to huddle up together, having a heat lamp in there is pretty nice. But the power draw, having it on all the time throughout the winter, where we have swings up and down, we don't want it on all the time. Without going with a real elegant, some sort of computer controlled, another maintenance nightmare solution, this is very simple. Actually save you a lot of money. So if you look at the math on what it might save you, I've got highlighted here on the screen, probably going to be closer to the more common, about 9.5 cents per kilowatt hour. What it would cost you per day to run a 250 watt heat lamp. And that's my assumption, 250 watt, that's pretty well standard. Costs you 57 cents a day, and that comes out to about $17 a month, for 30 days. So if you could save just 4 hours a day by having this cut it off, that'd be close to $3 a day, or sorry, per month. And if it saved 8 hours a day, that'd be close to $6 a month. So your payback period would be 4.5 months if it saved you 4 hours a day, and close to 6 months. Or sorry, close to 2.3 months if it saved you 8 hours a day, $5.7 per month saved. Anyway, and would be typical here as your cost per kilowatt hour goes up. The payback period would be much shorter, especially if you're in a place that charges a high charge per kilowatt hour. Uses you might have besides a well house. Obviously, you're going to have one of these in a well house. If you've got dogs outside, it's still a good idea to give them some heat to get into if they need to. If you have poultry, they're so much more sensitive to cold that you probably wouldn't want it to cut off, but you may have one on all the time. Maybe this one as kind of a booster, secondary. If it gets really cold, have this come on, and then hold the heat for a bit of time until it warms up enough for them to warm up. So anyway, just a quick tip, any home store, I'm sure any local hardware store like an Ace Hardware would probably have these too if you're in a colder climate. The amount of money they can save you long term, if you are in a situation where you need a heat lamp, it's really worth it. Ours, when it quit, at first I thought it was probably the bulb because it's the most common thing. It ended up being this that quit, but it was 4 or 5 years, I'm not even sure. So it does add another point of failure. If you're in a situation where you need a heat lamp, especially with a water well, you're probably going to run 2 of them just to be safe, to have that redundancy there. So if you're going to run this, probably standard practice you would with anything else, run a pair, of these on 2 separate heat lamps, just in case, a bulb fails or this fails. But, 4 or 5 years when I look at it, in my payback, probably I'm up here in this cost in 9.5 cents a kilowatt hour, and it probably saves me close to 8 hours a day during the winter months. Easily, more than easily paid for itself in one winter. So 4 years, it definitely paid for itself. I think it's a good option, a good way to go if you're running a heat lamp.